Quite possibly, Nikola Tesla was one of the smartest and strangest men to ever live. And many of his inventions were far ahead of their time, and it would only be later that the world would have a growing fascination with his work. Born in 1856 in what was part of the Austrian Empire and is now modern Croatia, Tesla would gain a fascination for the power of electricity at a young age. He would go on to earn his degrees in both engineering and physics during the 1870s and move to the United States in 1884. At first, he would go to work at the Edison Machine Works, which manufactured many of the components for the machines built by Thomas Edison. Tesla worked for Edison for a total of 6 months before finally quitting and starting his own company. Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing was financed by several businessmen and allowed him to continue his work of devising new electric lighting systems, known as arc lighting. Unfortunately, with the market being what it was, Tesla's backers eventually decided that there was no money in Tesla's ideas and wanted simply to own a utility company. The inventor was pushed out and left with nothing. Because of this, Tesla was forced to work more manual labor jobs just to survive. It would be a year later that another group of business financiers would back Tesla, opening the Tesla Electric Company in 1887. Tesla was able to work out of his labs in Manhattan and begin work on creating and improving new types of motors and devices using the power of electricity. While the extreme markets of the electric companies would cause this business to end as well, Tesla did manage to become wealthy from selling his new motors. He would begin work in this time on some of his more important as well as the strangest devices. While working in New York, Tesla created the Tesla coil, began working on a wireless lighting system, developed various engines and generators, tried to improve the new art of X-rays, and created a basic idea of remote controlling something. While these many experiments were interesting, very few of his ideas caught on in the real world. Eventually, Tesla would begin to work in earnest to develop wireless power transfer, which he saw as a way to communicate around the world. Once more, this showed that the man was far ahead of his time. He would move to Colorado Springs, where he would develop the Warden Cliff Tower to experiment with wireless transfers. Now that some of the history is out of the way, let us look at the man himself. While brilliant, Tesla was not without his eccentricities. From a very young age, he was said to have an eidetic memory, which allowed him to remember things after having only seen them once. He could memorize entire books on any subject and spoke 8 languages. Tesla himself said that he suffered from strange flashes of light. Within these flashes, he would see visions of objects and inventions. These acted as his sort of inspiration. He would see something in its entirety and begin working on it immediately. It was said that he never worked from blueprints, instead seeing the inventions to its completion within his mind. These claims have led to some believing that he was being fed the ideas by some strange entities, whether they were aliens or possibly tapping into the knowledge stream that flows through the universe. He was also said to sleep very little, saying that he only slept for 2 hours every night. He would awaken his friends at strange hours, telling them of how he had just solved one of his inventions or had a brilliant idea. He never married, believing that women were the perfect beings and far too grand for him. He also said that a lack of relationships aided in his quest for knowledge. When it comes to his inventions, the man was possibly ahead of his time. Many of his ideas would require things that wouldn't be invented for decades. Others were simply outlandish and would never be created. During Tesla's life, he created some very interesting inventions that unfortunately, or fortunately in some cases, never went anywhere. While we've already given you a brief history of the inventor, we're going to take a quick look at some of his inventions that might have been just a little ahead of their time. Number 1. Robots. That's right, robots. Tesla was known to have seen a future where robots would perform tasks for humans that were considered dangerous. He saw a world that seems to only be now coming into fruition. One of his inventions was a remote-controlled boat in the late 1800s. While the purpose of the boat was for his idea of radio waves, many point to it as an early idea of robotics as well. Number 2. Death beam. Referred to by Tesla as a peace beam, this device would emit a particle beam that could wipe out enemy planes, boats, or people. Hypothetically, this could be used to destroy your entire enemy long before they had the chance to even begin to plan a counterattack. It seems that this device was never created. Thankfully, after his death, the plans for the peace beam were never actually found, which actually isn't that surprising since Tesla was not known for working off of blueprints. The Soviet Union seemed to show some interest in the weapon and supposedly actually tested it in the late 1930s. However, it was never built, to our knowledge. Number 3. Tidal wave machine. Another device which Tesla touted as being able to end wars before they even started. The artificial tidal wave machine would send remote signals to detonate explosives and create a massive tidal wave that could wipe out your enemy's fleets. Hypothetically, this could be used to destroy the whole island nations or a country's entire coastline. Number 4. Wireless energy transfer. Tesla believed that he would be capable of wirelessly transferring energy to light up the entirety of New York City, using his Wardenclyffe Tower, which was built on Long Island. He also believed that it would be possible to communicate and transfer images and recordings across the globe. Now, today we do that at the touch of a button with our cell phones and the internet, but at the time, this was a crazy idea. Many of Tesla's backers also pulled out because the idea of people receiving energy without any wires would also have crippled many of their other businesses. Number 5. Earthquake machine. Tesla once invented a steam-powered oscillating generator that would conduct electricity. While the generator never seemed to go anywhere, he once attached it to the building he was in and turned up the frequency. The vibration of the generator was so strong that it shook the building to its very foundations and nearly brought it down around their heads. When asked about the incident, Tesla merely stated that the building had been caught in a very localized earthquake. Number 6. Supersonic electric airplane. Many of Tesla's ideas seem to stem from one of his other ideas. One can marvel at a world entirely powered by Tesla. One of these was an airplane that would be powered by electricity that was sent to it remotely via towers that were on the ground. Much like his Wardenclyffe Tower, this airplane would be light since it did not require fuel to fly and was supposedly fast enough to go from New York to London in a few hours. Tesla would die alone in 1943 at the age of 83. He would be dead for 2 days from a blood clot in his heart before a maid found his body in his New York hotel room.